Amidst economic crisis occasioned by the Naira redesign policy and, of course, the attendant fuel scarcity, the CBN Monetary Policy Committee met today to discuss critical monetary policies that will further strengthen the Naira and stabilize the economy. Parts of the resolutions include tightening the economic moderately and sustain demand and pull pressure. The committee also resolved to narrow effective real interest gap to moderate the monetary phenomenon in the current drivers of inflation and boosts bank credibility. Although the NPC voted to upscale the monetary policy ratio MPR to 18.5%, the CBN governor and chairman of the MPC, Godwin Emefiele, is concerned, noting that it is unhealthy for the economy to have an inflation rate that is significantly higher than the monetary policy rate. Now, how will these resolutions translate to the ordinary Nigerian to feel the positive impact of the economy? These and more questions will drive our conversation tonight on the program. Welcome to Nigeria Today. I am your carrier, Clinton. Joining us via Zoom to discuss the issues is Dr. Tochukwu Okafor, an economic analyst and a lecturer at Bayes University, Abuja. Glad to have you with us.
Nice to be here, Yukiria. Thanks.
Also with me here in the studio is Yushau Ali, an economist and a public affairs analyst. Good to have you with us.
Thank you very much.
Now, I'll start with you, Dr. Tochukwu. Despite the administration's drive towards reducing the inflation, the committee still raised concern about the rising rate of inflation. What does it portend for Nigeria and the economy?
If you recall last year, I think at one of the MPC meetings, Emefiele unequivocally stated that as long as inflation continues to rise, the CBN and the MPC will continue to increase or continue to aggressively tighten interest rates. But I think in today's meeting, there was a passive response in that regard. He said that as much as the MPC wants to tighten, they might become a little passive with regards to tightening. And the reason is the cause of the inflation rates currently happening now is an unorthodox one. It's not we can't use the conventional styles to tackle it, because what is happening is an anomaly, right? An example I can give is if a father and a son are living in a house and the son has more money than the father will have limited control over the things he can say in that house. So that's typically what is happening. The economy, the amount of money outside in the system, outside the system is more than the money within the system. And as much as the CBN tried to bring the Naira redesign, which was a step in the right direction but wrong implementation, that would have helped tip it. I mean, we saw some results with regards to the what they call it, the dollar, right? Naira to dollar. We saw how stable the Naira was in those months. But the problem is the implementation was actually harsh on the general public. So as long as we have old money still running in the system, we are going to still see inflation continue to rise, because the techniques that are supposed to be used are supposed to be from the CBN controlling the system. But right now it's the other way around. So as long as we have excess money in the system pursuing few goods, we'll keep seeing inflation. And as long as the CBN continues tightening, it's just going to keep hurting the private sector, especially the manufacturers. They've already started seeing contraction in that department. So as long as we have excess money outside the system versus the limited funds the banks has to use to do its monetary policy techniques, we might keep seeing inflation rising until probably December or second quarter of 2024, when the Naira redesign policy will retake place after, like the CBN has said, in December. But till then, we might still keep seeing inflation rising at the pace at which it's rising. And we are seeing new highs right now.
Thank you, Doc. Yushau, the MPC votes to raise MPR to 18.5% and retain all other parameters. How would these affect the micro and macro economy?
It depends on how you use the parameters to gauge the policy itself. But the truth of the matter is the fact that Monetary Policy Committee, one of the functions of the bank is just to maintain price stability. And if there is no price stability and there is persistent change in price, general price level, that is inflation. So the failure for the bank to maintain the stability over a period of time, especially in a quarter, that shows that there are so much anomalies going on, especially in the monetary policy itself. The MPR to be raised to 18.5% on monthly basis, 100 basis in 2 months subsequent, seemingly, that is very, very unfortunate. I have said at times with that number that if you are to control excess money, you must know what you have in the bank. The policy redesign by the central bank testify that the bank has total control of currency at the beginning of the redesign. But unfortunately, when the old notes were asked to be used again, I don't know how that measure was stolen from the bank, because the bank was able to call all the excess money in the economy in the short run. And the bank also decided to now testify before the economy that they have succeeded in bringing back large sum of money that is up to above 2.7 trillion in control of the bank. So the issue, the contradictions here, or the inconsistencies here, is the fact that how does the bank, after regaining or taking back the old note to control, and then subsequently the notes are not there? That is a question to be answered. Second, I have testified that in trying to control inflation using monetary policy rate is not going to work, and it has not been working. For about 4 years, when the MPR was 14%, it has been increasing. Up to now in May, taking inflation to about 22%.
So what will work?
It doesn't work. So, but I said there must be unconventional models that must be used. Supply bottlenecks. There are a lot of factors. Some of this inflation is imported. So if you are controlling inflation that is imported into the economy, you go to exchange rate control, because so long as the exchange rate remain 442 naira to a single dollar
official rate,
that will bring so much pressure in the market. And raising the MPR, I have said it, is like indirectly increasing the cost of borrowing. And when you are increasing the cost of borrowing, you understand from the micro perspective that an individual manufacturer who is a sachet of milk that is costing probably 100 naira, when you check the content is no longer there, but the size remain. So there are a lot of issues that either directly or indirectly is removing or eroding the consumer's purchasing power and eroding their confidence. And when that is consistent in an economy over a long period, you see slow in growth rate. You see challenges in different sectors of the economy because of the multiplier implication. These are basics, and it is not a rocket science. You can now possibly attest that the bank has tried to raise the MPR over a long period, but raising the MPR has never reduced the inflation. Then what is wrong?
Okay, Dr. Tochukwu, the MPC also knows that there's stability in the banking sector, but a lull in the equities, the equity market. What does this imply?
Actually, I was even about to speak on that. So while I agree with my colleague in the studio that shrinkflation is actually what is taking place, and shrinkflation is where you have a good that used to be full before is now half, but it's still the same price. That's probably what we're experiencing now. But the reason, if I'm going to say, is a double-edged sword for the CBN, right? While it's bad in that department or in that aspect, the good part of it is what the CBN is trying to do is they're trying to reduce negative investment returns, right? So the bond and the fixed income assets markets have actually witnessed significant decline in actual returns. So what they're trying to do is to reduce the what they call it the negative returns to investments. So if you have inflation at 22.22% and you have interest rate at 18.5, it wedges the gap by 4 point something percent, rather than when you have it at 14% interest rate and then you have inflation at 22 point something percent, you're almost having almost 10%, and investors will not want to. That reduces FDI in the first place because nobody wants to come and invest in negative territory. That is one. And then with regards the equity market, I think that was why Emefiele in the meeting today stated that they have to be passive with the aggression, because they've discovered that the private sector, right, are actually feeling the pinch, especially those that actually manufacture, right? The PMI index, that's the producing manufacturing index, showed that there was serious contraction between when interest rate hit 16% till when it has hit this 18.5. So if that contraction continues, we'll continue to see, I don't know, the GDP result that they released, or the GDP report released last week showed 2.31% from 3.54. So if that continues, we'll keep seeing a pseudo recession and we'll keep tending towards recession. So what Emefiele is trying to do, or what the CBN is trying to do, is they're trying to strike a balance between not sending investment or investors into negative territory versus also not trying to kill the private sectors from manufacturing. So that balance is usually not, it's not that easy. And the problem now is, like my colleague said, this is an unorthodox situation. You can't be using an orthodox method versus an unorthodox situation. The crisis now is the child, which is the general public, has more money than the father, which is the CBN, and definitely abuse is going to be imminent. So if we are going to do this, the only time we are going to see progress with regards to inflation is when we go back to that redesign policy, and then the CBN has absolute control over liquidity in the system. If the CBN doesn't have control over that liquidity, inflation is going to keep rising, and I can guarantee it, because once there is excess money outside the system will naturally tend towards where the money is rather than where the regulations are.
Thank you very much. Let's pause here for a break. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Of the ruling is also dependent on another aspect or another arm of government.
Nowhere in the world will allow, under digital economy, for banks not to be dispensing domestic currency in that economy.
What will make this one different?
We want to know what they do as occupation. All of these are attributes that our questions have been designed to investigate.
In a few days to come, you see that we are all around their own crannies and everywhere in Nigeria, telling people to cooperate.
Welcome to Nigeria Today. Welcome back. It is still Nigeria Today, and my guests are still with me, two gentlemen, both economists, one via Zoom and the other here with me in the studio. Now, we heard what Doctor had to say there. Now, looking at the MPC decisions, all the resolutions, what is the hope of the ordinary man?
The hope of the ordinary man depends on the policies of the government, fiscal and monetary, because the two determine what remains with the consumer or the household in general. When you take macroeconomic perspective and you take what the consumers are earning, that is their income determines their consumption. So far as there is inflation in an economy, consumers' income will be eroded, consumers' confidence will be eroded, and that will slow the GDP, as rightly pointed by Dr. Tochukwu from the statistic release. But what I think is better for the Central Bank of Nigeria, since the policy has been postponed and a lot of leakages have been discovered. One is the fact that even if we are redesigning the currency, the central bank must prepare the currencies that the CBN want to be circulating must be prepared. That is one. Two, consumers must be educated. If they are educated on the importance of liquidity and the importance of having certain reservation on liquidity, consumers must be educated, because if consumers are prepared and educated enough, it will be better for the economy. But for now, consumers are in crisis, cost of living crisis, because inflation does not allow investor to invest. Inflation does not allow consumer to consume. Inflation does not allow even government to be stable. And once you have a lot of inconsistencies, you must check all unconventionally. The orthodox economics reveal that it's on an assumption. Things must be held constant before A and B can respond. And even when you go into econometrics, you are trying to test economic hypothesis, you realize that there is what is called an error term. This error term always tries to dictate what are those forces that is pushing A, B, or C. Inflation, one, supply factors. Once you now base our market based on agricultural economy, that is where you are expecting harvest, and you are expecting harvest to be taken to market, but at what cost? And what are the variables that are taking this production to the market? If you take, for instance, now presently, the cost of PMS has increased, and that will change the scenario. No matter what policy measure you try to add, if transport cost does not remain constant over a period of time from the production zone to the market, prices will be changing. And at the same time also, if you are displacing farmers and they are not in harmony, then you are expecting shortages and you are expecting a lot of bottlenecks. These bottlenecks will continue to increase the inconsistencies that is bringing gap between the production, the cost, and the profit. Naturally, economics is a simple model where if you produce A, you look at the cost of production, but you add your margin and take your profit. But when you take general price and you now take Nigeria back to the redesign, 3 months back, you will see that even when the CBN was in control of the liquidity in a very short period, agricultural produce, their prices fall. But it's not because there is no liquidity only. There is a lot of factors also associated that are uncommon, that are not orthodox. For instance, at the base, they prefer to have cash to advance their good. And in the absence of cash, the farmers will prepare to take new note at low price and take the loss. And nobody want to. I have discussed with a farmer that he is thinking that if this administration come into being, if they are going to open border, he is not going to farm, because he is sure that if supply continue to come, then definitely what he is going to produce, he will produce at a loss. So it's considering. So we have to be up and doing, especially now that we have discovered that the MPC has raised the monetary policy rate. Inflation is above 22%, and at the same time also the push factors are coming, because the transition period, there is a period of uncertainty. Then definitely there is going to be break in the supplies into many markets in Nigeria until the political scene is being settled. That is when we expect proper supplies. And at the same time also, the rainy season is just taking up. So we are expecting shortages of some kind of products that are coming. This is agricultural induced. But for the manufacturing, it is obvious. If the MPR increases, definitely the cost in the production is increased, and that is inflation. And there is no way you can prevent a Nigerian consumer from paying higher prices.
Thank you very much. Dr. Tochukwu, the MPC stressed the need for a monetary and fiscal cooperation. The IMF recently also mentioned this, also, pointed out this fact, the need for cooperation. How will this help the economy, given all the, the indices on the ground?
Okay, so from the last report, right, and even the current meeting they had, I think the CBN should take note of 5 troubling indicators or indications which were taken from those reports, which I personally even took from the report. First off, we should know that businesses are becoming uncertain, right? Businesses don't even know how to budget again. So we're going to see a problem there. The second one is we discovered, or if you looked at the report, you'll notice that core inflation hit a record high of 20%. I think that was the first time since 2016. And food inflation hit a record high of 24%. What we are seeing here, or what we're looking at for core inflation is we are going to be noticing that housing, education, and healthcare are going to be rising at a ridiculous rate. Now, while that is happening, food inflation, on the other hand, which is rising, the problem we're going to see here is that we are going to start seeing food insecurity very soon, and we're also going to be seeing a malnutrition amongst the lower income class, especially the poor households. We are going to start seeing malnutrition because they won't be able to afford nutritious food, if I can put it that way. And then another problem with that is prioritized spending is now going to be excessive, that you see making ends meet for the average household is going to become a problem. So houses that have up to 4 or 5 children and are middle income earners are going to see serious problem in this regard. And if malnutrition increases for the poor households and healthcare, which is in core inflation, is also high, you can see where the crisis is coming is like the devil and the deep blue sea. You're not eating well, or you're not being neutralized, or nutrition, you're not eating nutritious food, and you're also having malnutrition, and the healthcare system is also more expensive than you can afford. We're going to start seeing crisis there. That's why the CBN and the fiscal authorities should start working hand in hand to provide solutions to hedge for this crisis before December, when they kick off with the redesign policy. Else, if inflation keeps rising like this, there will be a point where people cannot even afford beans and egg. And if you cannot afford as little as beans, and we need to understand something, beans and egg are backup food for some people. Beans, egg, gari. If those things start getting as expensive as buying burger in KFC and Burger King, and the poor income class or the lower income class cannot afford it, then we are already entering a crisis. And when we start having malnutrition with the lower income class, trust me, GDP dropping is just going to be the first or the slightest of our problem. We are going to have a serious crisis on our hand, if not a pseudo pandemic in itself. So yeah, the CBN should work in conjunction with fiscal authorities to find a way to hedge against food inflation, or find means for the lower income class with regards to food inflation, and then subsequently we can start tackling the monetary aspect of monetary and fiscal policy much later. But lives of people are the most important priority at this point in time.
Thank you very much. You shall just in 30 seconds tell us, can we get out of this economic quagmire that we are in, and how?
Yeah, we can get out of it because it just requires a policy trend where you remain consistent and apply the right measures. When you do that, you get out of it. Fiscal authorities reduce borrowing. We don't need borrowing to fund palliatives. We don't need it. Don't borrow to make intervention. Use the taxes that has been generated by the economy to undertake this kind of system.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that's it on Nigeria Today. Our appreciation goes to our guest, Dr. Tochukwu Okafor, an economic analyst, also a senior lecturer at the Bayes University, Abuja. Thank you very much for your contributions. And also Yusho Aliyu, an economist and also a public affairs analyst. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you, Ikeria. Thank you.
And to our viewer, thank you so much for always being part of this. Remember, the program Nigeria Today airs weekday at 7:30 p.m. on NTA News 24. You can watch this and other episodes on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. Once again, thank you for watching. I am Ikeria Clinton. Goodbye.